Okay, so welcome, folks. Welcome on behalf of Friends of Figma Coimbatore community. So, if you people, Coimbatore is a small city in Tamil Nadu, India, and so welcome you to the Building Trust with UX Research session. I'm Kishore Vidyasagar. I'm the chapter lead for Friends of Figma Community Coimbatore chapter. I have my background in information technology and I have started my career as a UI developer, basically, like most of the other designers in India. Like we come from various backgrounds. So I transitioned into a product designer later. I have like 4 years of experience working with mostly enterprise and data heavy applications. So I'm currently working as a user experience that shoot. And today we have Tithi with us. So she has a background in psychology and human-centered design. She started her career as a product designer, and now she have moved into research. She have like 4 years of experience working with various domains like developer solution, developer experience, take an automobile. And without any further delay, let's get started. So, Titi, over to you. Stop my recording. Oh, sorry, my sharing. You can share your screen.
Thank you so much. My God, that's an illustrious introduction. I'm just going to share my screen. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool. 1 second. Sorry, just bear with us tech bros from Bangalore. Okay, just figuring out the tech part. I'll just start my presentation in a minute. Okay, cool. Fine. Okay, I'm getting the option to screen suddenly. 1 second.
We have your
Am I?
screen. You can see. Yeah, yeah, we have your screen.
Okay. 1 second. Okay, you can see my screen now. Okay, all
Yes,
right.
yes.
Sorry for the 2 minutes delay from my end. Like everybody from Bangalore is a tech bro, and we are all challenged by tech. So sorry about that. Well, hello everyone. We are a small group of people today, and in a way, I'm really happy and excited because it's going to be a really informal session. So thank you so much for joining in. As Kishore mentioned, my name is Tithi, and in today's session, I will be taking you through how you can build trust in your organization with UX research. I'm going to skip about my background because, like, Kishore has already given like an illustrious introduction. So thank you for that. And I promise this session is going to be super helpful for somebody, say, who is just starting out, in UX research, having zero background in UX, get started. And also, like, if there are any designers in the house who wants to, transition into UXR, want to learn about UX research, and also anyone who wants to learn about practically anyone. You could be like a content designer, you could be like a product manager. If you want to learn about UXR and get like a crash course about how to build trust, this is the session for you, right? Let's just get started, and you can take a shot of water or vodka depending on your weekend mood every time I say the word like UX research, trust, users, or stakeholders. And you can also take a shot if I can't. I'm still recovering from bronchitis, and by not drinking any cold or any kind of cold beverage for the next couple of weeks. Yeah. So when we talk about trust, what do you think is the definition of trust, and why do you think it's so important? Can I get on the chat? Probably. I'll give it a. Okay. So, like, according to which is Research and Data Alliance, trust is a set of principles, right? And also a lot of the things that we speak about trust, right? It is to be transparent about certain specific services, the data holdings, and that are verifiable by evidence. It's responsible for ensuring the authenticity and integrity of data. Uh, it is also very much user focused. You can take a shot now. To ensure the expectations of target user communities, that if that are met or not. It is also to sustain and preserve data holdings for longer term, and it is to provide infrastructure, the technology capabilities to be able to support secure and be persistent and have reliable services. And UX research is one of those ways to accommodate everything that I spoke about now, right? So, in simple words, conducting research, understanding what our users have to say, users' attitude and their deeper needs, and sharing back and facilitating and helping in the product decision to be able to understand and address the user needs is one of the core, crux of UXR, right? So simplify the concept and the role for you even more, right? So as a UXR, you are not just partners for that, but also are the true advocates. This means that you hunt and ask the right questions to them. You choose the right methods to answer those questions and bring those insights from the users back to the product table, to be able to take informed, evidence-based, focused decisions. And that's how you build not just trust with your stakeholders, but also with your users, right? I like a brief pause here. And hey, Kishore, like if there are any comments popping up in chat, just let me know about it. Yeah. Um,
Sure, sure.
cool. All right. So now that we know and understand UXR and its role, let's talk about how do we find and ask the right questions, and which is like the foundation of building the trust, right? Well, in an world, we always hope for a perfectly framed research question, but we don't live in a perfect world, sadly, right? So how do you ask the right kind of question, right? More often than not, you will end up getting like a very vague scenario or a question that you will have to break down in collaboration with your stakeholders, right? And this process needs a little bit of back and forth, but you can arrange this in a more synchronized way by facilitating assumptions mapping workshop, right? Or even like doing one-on-one with your tribe members or your squad members. We also, will get to it in a brief moment in the activity section, doing the same thing. Essentially, these kind of questions. So lots of to be able to, retrieve what we call is the metadata before starting your research. So, like now, assuming you have clarified all of your questions and context and doubts, the right kind of research method to be able to conduct the research, right? And sorry about that. Itself is a very big problem statement because if you go through any research book or any research, book, you will find like n number of that you can choose from. But in today's session, I won't be speaking about how many research methods you can choose. What are those research methods? Because that you can find on your own. But in today's session, I'll be speaking about how you can, choose the right kind of research and what it takes to choose. Depending on your findings from your stakeholders, your research can be either qualitative or quantitative in nature, right? Quantitative research is pretty much statistical and numerical in nature. It's pretty much straightforward. If you are sitting here, you probably know the difference between qualitative and but in a very industry kind of a definition, if I were to define it, a quantitative research is more of like a statistical and numerical in nature. It involves the process of objectively qualifying and collecting, analyzing numerical data to describe, predict, and control the variables of interest, right? So, like for example, if to send out like a survey to you now and ask how many of you are attending a weekend workshop on UX research, slouching uh, keeping your videos off. I'm focusing on numbers here, right? And I'm behavioral traits. No. So I'm looking more of like a how many people are attending in what ways, right? Other industry grade examples would be say, you know, or any kind of rating scale such as questions of a questionnaire that would generate some level of quants data, right? On the other hand, qualitative research is a process of collecting and analyzing and interpreting non-numerical data such as language, mannerisms, your behavior. Some examples of the qual research. Okay, let's go back to the slouching back example. Like if I were to come into your room and observe like, in what condition you are observing or listening to me, that would be more of a qualitative aspect of it. Now that's more behavioral in nature, and get to that in a point. But like if we speak more in terms of say industry grade, like in-depth view would be more of a qual data where you are sitting down with the participant, you are asking them a question, and it's not necessarily uh, you know not attached to it, say like looking from behaviorism and mannerisms there. So some of the qual research methods, in-depth interviews, focus groups, fly in the wall. I'm not coming to your room, don't worry. But yeah, etc. Right? Now, once you have that, the research brief would be like trying to understand if it is attitudinal or behavioral in nature. So some of the methods allow you to understand the feels and attitude of what the users think. For example, an in-depth interview, like you can literally ask certain questions to your users and understand what is their how are they feeling about certain systems, or what is their first impression. That those are all attitudinal attributes, right? Now for example, if you were to do like a behavioral study, say you want to observe the drivers community when they are doing, say, pickup and drops or chauffeuring around, you are observing them, right? That's more behavioral in nature, right? So there are methods that allow you to understand, feels and attitude, and there are also methods which allow you to understand the user's behavior in the moment, where you are not really interacting with the user, but just observing them, right? And last important bit is to be able to map all of these things with the product developmental life cycle or the SDLC, right? Depending on what kind of a cycle that you follow. I mean, we do follow both in most of the companies, but we call it different companies. But let's just stick to the product developmental life cycle. It is crucial because we are answering different kinds of questions in different stages of product building. Say at an early stage of product developmental life cycle, the kind of questions that you would be asking are more exploratory or generative in nature. So lots of whys and whats. And as you move more towards the iterative side of the product building, say where you are reproducing designs and you want to understand if this design is going to work or not, those are more iterative stage, right? At that stage you are mostly doing a lot of evaluative studies, say split testing, usability testing, A/B testing, things like that, right? So now that you have locked on your methods, the next thing that comes into the picture is, okay, I just gave away the cue: use Zoom, use Lytics, but bear with me, I'll tie the cue. How do you recruit your users for UX research, right? So you can have the research brief and you can have the best acumen to be able to do the research, but it's all gonna fall flat if you don't have research ops in check, right? And crucial part of your research, right? So in bigger organization there are separate research ops who help you management and everything related to jobs like recruitment. You are like a lone ranger, only designer or only researcher in your organization. Let me give you like a cheap UX recruitment can like, and how can you be able to hire or participants, right? So your own organization, right? And how do you do? I don't really have a user research pool in my organization, but that's us. Everyone has that pool. You just have to go and find your product communities. Like, for example, a lot of the companies post their communities in GitHub, right? Or they have a separate domain for that. Like, for example, and they have their own domains of community where you can post. And similarly, there are other forums which are, say, that particular product, right? So you tap in, reach out to them, you start engaging, right? Now you might be wondering, how do I engage? Have it's very right, but have like a very consistent email communication system, or a very consistent language when, right? It's very important to be able to work with, say, content designer, or somebody who is very good at writing organization, right? Get those templates reviewed by them, and then you can reuse it again and again. Now, the reason it's very important is because you are not just representing your company in these kind of forums, but you're representing the research within your company, right? And it's very crucial because you want to be able to develop that interest. You want it to be really sassy, and you want people to come and click on it so that you end up getting participants, right? So how do you think you will attract people to sign up? Any guesses? You can type it in the chat. So incentives is the way to go, right? So there are different ways of calculating incentives, and there are many different, online calculators available these days. But it solely depends on your company's budget, the session duration, the kind of folks that you are speaking to, because hey, time is money. And in scenario may not be a constraint. Say your stakeholders are really open to, say, build like a research team of their own, you can rely on these kind of forums and platforms, say user Zoom, userlytics, user interviews, where you can literally buy participants to take part in your research. But catch to it, right? Now imagine a scenario where you sign up. How do you still decide who do I trust to be able to get the quality research insights, right? It's not that easy. Can't sign up. So for that, you need like a screener to be able to screen your participants to make sure that they are the right kind of participants, right? So I'm looking for people from SMB. You are going to make sure in your people from where what's like the size of their company. Right? It's small size, and you should have your own rejection and acceptance criteria. That really helps. It's essentially like a small questionnaire that you attach your recruitment sign up link, or send it to the participants later once they have signed up for the study, right? What else? You also need like a discussion with all the questions and probes while you are moderating the sessions, if at all, right? So there are moderated sessions are mostly where you are doing the thing remotely. You're just, they can do it on their own. It's more of a recorded session, but most of the time, a moderated session, and for that, you need a discussion guide. This is to make sure you are, when you are, and not flying off to any other chat moderator, right? What else do you need? Also need a consent form, and it's very, very crucial. You might surpass that, but I would encourage you not to do that. In simple words, it's more like an NDA, where you declare that you only use the personal data for the research, not anywhere else. Especially if you are sharing the screen with your participant, and if the participant is sharing the screen and taking you through their workflow and all of that, it's very, very important, right? If you don't have a participant, agreement form or a consent form, you need to sit down with your legal team and get that done before you start thinking. Okay, So once done, you know, how do you synthesize research data? Now that you have the moderated sessions done, you closed out on all of your sessions, and to synthesize that data and quantifiable insights that are not just actionable but can be useful to your product team, right? So you start off by grouping information and tagging it. Now there are different tools that are currently using Graphql, which is very expensive, and most companies do not allow you to use Graphql, but it's only now that I'm using it. Before I was using something called Airtable, and also it can get a little tedious. But what you want to do is come up with tags that okay, this information is relevant to this group of audience, or it can be anything, and that's where tagging the table. So as soon as when you particular tag, it gives you all the information from saying that okay, these are the different information in that group. Essentially, you want to find patterns of observation on needs, behaviors, and map with the overarching business goal and validate to find OKRs depending on the stage and the kind of research, right? This facilitates trust within organizations because your synthesis are evidence-based and it's not random. It's not like, hey, you have spoken to some random guy or your and come back and say, hey, you should be doing it. No, it's not random. It's evidence-backed. It's grouped. It's synthesized, right? Now, once you have done that, it's also very important to map historical data. What do I mean by historical data? It could be the data from product analytics. It could be the data from data science team. It could be the data from product support team, and also from CSM solution teams, and all of these different kind of teams, right? It adds that additional layer of rigor, transparency, and trust factor to your research. It helps you get that buy-in from your stakeholders, and it's super crucial because you are not just collaborating your triad, you are moving away from that. You are making sure you are taking your research one layer above in the organization and getting all of their ideas, right? So one of the example could be excuse me, you can take a shot. One of the example could be like, hey, I found these are like the 10 points of information and blockers from our users. You go and ask your product support team if similar tickets are coming up in Zendesk or whichever tool that you use, right? You find that pertinent information. You go and ask your product analytics team and see, hey, where exactly is the drop off happening? And essentially trying to create like a loop of information, which is going to help you get that buy-in, right? So another layer of thing that you should be adding to your research presentation and report is verbatim from the actual users. That again adds the additional layer of reinforcement and establishes that trust when you are doing a share back of synthesis with your stakeholders, because that's coming straight to the horse's mouth, right? It helps you get that empathy from your stakeholders for your users, which you want, because here you are not just an advocate, but you're also a catalyst between the product team and the users, right? So talking about, share back, how do you do share back? I won't be spending too much time on the slide because, every researcher I know does it in a different way, and you can come up with your own system of sharing back. However, what I would say is, know your audience. Different formats work for different groups of stakeholder. It could be like a presentation, it could be a report, it could be a Loom recorded video. Possibilities are endless, but ask feedback on your share back process from your stakeholders. See what works best, right? So you do want to write those long, lengthy reports because that acts like a what do I say, research repo. for the entire org, but find out what works best for your triad, and that's really really important, and you can reuse it, at least a template again and again, right? Also, like, share back, do the share back with core stakeholder group, not just with the core stakeholder group, but also at a right, through scripts, presentation, add snippets of short loom videos pertaining to specific topics. So in a research report, you can have like 10 different topics found out, right? 10 different topics are maybe not important to one single group. They are important to several different groups, and they don't have to go through the entire presentation for that, right? That can get a little bit tedious, sometimes boring as well, right? So what you do is you create reports for different groups separately, and you work with them. You constantly seek feedback and see that what works best for them. The other important thing is that, the TLDR, right? Because no one got the time to read the entire report, although it's super important for, Insights Library, but it's also very helpful if you can put like a snippet of paragraph where you're just saying, hey, these are like the 10 points that I in while doing the session, right? That's super important. That's also going to pique interest of people who are clicking on that report, and it's going to help you get that buy-in and more views in your research reports. Right. So I think we have finished the major chunk of the presentation. Now we have moved on to the activity and the more exciting part of the presentation. Yeah. So remember this slide where I was talking about how do you work with your stakeholders? You're going to exactly do that, and it's going to be a very hands-on activity, right? I just for X, can you hear the music? Okay, I'm just gonna continue. Okay, so we are, advanced here, where human race now lives and travels through intergalactic space and time, along with other races in harmony. However, intergalactic space and time is more crowded than ever, and we want to design like a system to communicate with people. But you know what? Department and government has hired like a researcher to hardships and needs of space citizens. But even before getting into the whole aspect of it, the researcher first must ask all the right questions, speak to their committee stakeholders on their questions, doubts, on their trust and confidence before reaching to the space citizens, right? So that's basically your trust activity. I'm going to the music now, if you heard that. Just effects. So who are your space committee stakeholders here? So you have the Space Station Government Authority. You have the Spatial Galactic Designer. You also have the Head of Space Development. And you have the Jedi Security Council Manager, right? And of course, you, who is the UX researcher, who is going to facilitate this entire session, right? So I'm just going to click on that. You also attach the link in the chat. Just give me a moment. Cool. Now I've attached the Figma link. What I do is to be able to get inside this Figma link, have, make copy of this in your own Figma instead. So I want, right, you already know that our galactic space, create a new communication. You want to understand what a research means. It's how better. I want you guys to, role play. Somebody can role play as a UX researcher, and we are going to, break you in breakout rooms where at least 5 people are there. You guys will be as, all of these characters and designations that I have mentioned. Have do do like a mapping exercise. Note down all of your questions that you want to get out of this research, right? And then try to map them in different groups, right? Create different groups that. Essentially, what I want you guys to have by the end of this activity is group of research focused areas that you would derive from this particular synthesis of questions. New research study title. So it cannot be that broad. How intergalactic communication system? What are the different things that you would be asking? Think of that way, and yeah, we can get started. Does anyone have any question? We can pause. If everyone is clear, then we can get started. Okay, I'm just gonna assume that there are no questions. I can see one, two, three, four, five folks in the board. Okay. So you want to create like the breakout rooms, or should I do it?
Yes, I will do that. Like considering this size, I would suggest you to go with like 4 audience per room.
Yes,
That should be
I think
fine.
that's good. Yes,
Okay.
that should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm creating the room now.
yeah. So we can get rid of the very handsome Jedi security manager from the board.
Okay.
I'm gonna leave it to you. I mean, UX researcher has to be there, but we can get rid of one, character. And I still want you guys to brainstorm, and I'll keep between the breakout rooms, if possible. Can we do that, Kishore?
Yes, 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 yes. I
Okay.
have created the room. You can switch between
Yeah.
rooms if needed.
I mean, it would have been nice if they were able to speak because they have to speak while doing the exercise. So,
Let me check. Like I think you can go to the particular room. I think now only since we are only the two audience, they won't hear us. I can hop into a room and I'll check if I can turn on the mic for them.
yeah, that would be nice. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm only seeing myself. Hello.